Welcome to What Do You Say, the podcast that peels back the layers of remarkable individuals to reveal their extraordinary sides and their incredible lives. I'm your host, Frank Termini, and I'm absolutely thrilled to embark on this journey with you. The podcast name's What Do You Say, but that's not how it's said.
How do you say it?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
You got it. We say. Do you not have any desire to coach? Right? You know what I mean? That's what I want to ask these guys, you know? Do you not have any desire to coach and get a kid to play outside themselves? You know, that's why I'm glad the fifth graders are doing the B team. Because
for
NECO.
Oh.
They're doing B games for the fifth graders because there were so many kids that came out.
Really?
And so they were able to talk to some other teams and say, hey, look, we won't cut anyone either. Let's play. Now, some of the kids, there was a couple kids we had to cut because it was just clearly unsafe for them to be on a football field, right? But it was like, now we can take kids, and if they don't get a whole lot of snaps on Saturdays, they can go play the whole B game. I mean, it's like, let's go ahead, let's develop some kids, let's... Look, as a high school football coach, I remember my first year in 2020 looking at, I could think of 2 or 3 kids in particular that were juniors that year. And I'm thinking, man, their senior years, what are we going to do? These kids, they're just probably not going to see the field, you know? You know, 2 of them were all state their senior year. So it's like kids develop at different times.
Way different rates. And we're in an age where we feel a lot of pressure, and a lot of pressure is being put on parents and kids that they have to specialize early and they have to already be elite at 10, 11, 12 years old. Well, and then they get discouraged if they're not.
Right. And I told Frankie, I said, Frankie, they're going to have a B team this year. He goes, I'm not playing in B games. I said, let me explain something to you. I don't care how much snaps you get in the A team game, you're playing in the B game. Period. Case closed. You're playing in it. You're taking the opportunity. You're going to get more reps, and I don't care how many snaps you get in the A game. You're playing in the B game. Period. I don't care. And you know, he goes, well, don't you want me to play on the A team? I'm like, I really don't care if you're on the A team or the B team. That doesn't really matter to me. Go out, be a good teammate, make others around you better, and go have fun. I'm like, the amount of pressure these young kids get on them over youth sports.
A team, B team, or the
ones
team,
twos
team, whatever,
right.
whatever
for volleyball, it's like, who cares? Just go play. And because at the end of the day, and I've said it on this podcast 100 times, as a coach, and I don't care, like here, let me introduce you real quick. So let me introduce. So we got Tessa Brophy, collegiate volleyball player, club coach, as well as high school coach. You coach, is it JV or freshman?
I coached varsity last year, and I'll be an assistant varsity coach again this year at Liberty.
Oh, why did I think that you coached freshman or JV as well? No, so you just coach assistant varsity. So I like that coach over there too. I can't think
Fleming?
Fleming. I like the Chad, the husband.
husband.
Yeah, super nice guy. You know what? He'd be a good guy to get on here.
Yeah, both of them. I mean, she started coaching. This is her 21st year of coaching varsity.
Yeah.
And
I can't believe she had to start young because they're not much older than they may be younger than me.
Yeah, no, she's...
And he was a D1 basketball player.
Mm-hmm. And their kids are little athletes.
Yeah.
They're definitely...
Yeah, the son, Frankie played baseball with the son. I can't think of his name, the son's name. And the brother was a real good basketball player.
Chad's brother?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can't remember his name. They're both really good. They're a good basketball family. So here, I got to do one quick interruption because the Ashley Van Boxmeer podcast, I got a little blowback from it. So this is for the listeners because I got just a little bit of blowback from the Ashley Van Boxmeer podcast. Because here's what happened. We went to you met Michelle's friend Nina?
Yep.
Okay, so we went to her wedding and Ashley was there. And her and I were talking, and she's a stud softball player. She played in the God darn it. She traveled all over the world playing, and she played in I think she played in the Olympics for Canada. Well, now she coaches. I'm like, shit, you should coach at Pius. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, here, let's DM the athletic director. Well, she's drunk as piss, and I'm drunk as piss too. So she just DMs the athletic director. If you want to win in softball, hire me. Right now, it was alcohol induced, right? And so Andrew and I are talking about this on the podcast, right? And I'm like, Andrew goes, well, what ended up happening? I said, well, Vince never responded. Well, and I guess Vince had some phone calls of why he didn't respond to Ashley Van Boxmeer. I just want to say he responded to the inquiry. He did not respond to the DM, right? Why would he respond to the DM, right? It was clearly alcohol induced, but he did respond to the inquiry, and somebody was already hired for the position. So here, me and Vince, we go way back, right? And I had made some comments on the podcast, but I was talking as if Vince was right there because look, Vince was a all-state running back. He was on a state championship football and baseball team. He ended up playing baseball at Rockhurst, and he was a sophomore when I was a senior, and he was the starting tailback, and I was a starting fullback. So he and I have a bond, as a volleyball player would have, and so I can have these conversations with Vince, and Vince isn't going to get offended. You know what I mean? But if you were listening to that podcast, not knowing the background of me and Vince, you may think, man, Frank's calling Vince out right now. And I really wasn't trying to do that. So I wanted to let the listeners know, yes, Vince did respond to the inquiry, but did not respond to the direct message. So, and that's what me and Andrew were saying. So anyway, because he called me up and he's like, Frank, I'm getting phone calls about not responding to this. He goes, and I just want you to know.
We could have had an Olympian softball coach.
No, they had just already hired someone for the position. So anyway, so let's go back to you. When did you start playing volleyball? So here, you're what, 5 what?
5.
5'5".
Yep.
Okay. And when did you start playing volleyball?
I started playing rec volleyball when I was in 5th or 6th grade.
And you're only like in your 30s, right?
Yep, 33.
So you were 12, so this was about, 20 years ago, say.
Yeah.
Was it as big as it is now then?
No, volleyball has absolutely blown up. It is one of the fastest growing sports in the nation. And I think, seeing it on sand and indoor on the Olympics, I think it's, growing to be one of the most watched sports right now. But it is an absolutely a different level from when I started at 12, when I was in high school playing club.
So they did have club I guess they even had it with Michelle. I don't think it was as big.
Club was still pretty
back
big.
In the 60s when Michelle played.
For me. And whatever.
She told me to give her a shout out. I said, there's your shout out, babe.
No, club was still big. We knew that high school still had a lot of importance, whereas now I almost feel like high school doesn't have as much importance with volleyball as big as club.
Well, here, like Michaela Fox, all the letters she's getting are going to her club coach. You're not going to the high school coach.
And my club coach was my high school coach, Gwen Egbert. She played at Nebraska. She had just started at my high school. It was a brand new school.
Where'd you go?
Papillion South in Nebraska.
Oh, so you're from Nebraska originally?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
And I mean, it's a huge volleyball state. So volleyball's been huge there forever.
Who's that 5'7" hitter Nebraska had that I watched when they were playing the NCAA tournament, which was so fun to watch because, clearly I love football. I'm a football coach, but I didn't watch a down of football that weekend. I watched volleyball the entire time.
Yeah.
Michelle, so a guy walks in my office one day, and he's on the phone. He's talking about volleyball, and he has a club. I don't remember the name of the club. The twins were just babies, just infants. And he goes, I'm looking for a coach. I'm like, well, shit, my wife was a stud volleyball player. I said, Michelle played club. She played at Rockhurst all 4 years, played in a couple national championships. I mean, she was a stud. I go, I think she even coached a little bit of club. He goes, well, call her. So I called her right then and there. All of a sudden, boom, she's coaching club. Well, her first tournament, she's like, will you please come watch? I'm like, fuck. Yeah, fine. Let me get a babysitter for a couple hours because I was going to watch the kids while she went.
Yeah, infant twins.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And Gianna's still in diapers too at the time. I'm like, fine, I'll go watch. I couldn't leave once I got there. I enjoyed it so much. Number one, I enjoy watching her coach. And number two, I just was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. So naturally, I'm telling the babysitter, here, I'll be back in a couple hours. I ain't going to watch this whole damn tournament. And so I called the babysitter. I'm like, can you stay longer? She said, I'll stay as long as you want. I stayed. I didn't miss one tournament. And I didn't have any vested interest in it at all other than my
Just
wife
your
was
wife
coaching. Yeah. And I love that game. I'm so glad my girls love it. It is so much fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
So much fun to watch.
Well, I think a huge part of what I try to coach is to love the game. Because it's way more enjoyable to watch it when you see kids and you can tell they love the game.
Well, and here, so I had Coach Simone on here. And Coach Simone also state championship at Pius, I think his junior year, maybe even went his sophomore year, I can't remember. And then he ended up going and playing at Jewel, real good linebacker, and he's a fantastic football coach. But he said the main coach that he remembers was his third grade football coach, Anthony Palminteri, who taught him to love football. Mm-hmm. You know, and so just it's interesting how a third grade coach influenced him all throughout his career, all the way through William Jewell and as a coach now. So, you know, getting kids to love the game is the key.
Yeah. I think I loved sports my whole life, and some of my coaches, I had different club coaches, but like my high school coach, she was so hard on us that it a little bit made you to be like, do I want to keep playing volleyball? But what she taught me how to do was to compete and compete and compete. And so what I realized that I love doing is competing.
Right.
You know, like I loved being an underdog. I loved looking across the net and seeing, I played against players who were All-Americans, right? So I'm looking across the net and I'm like, I'm going to dig her. I'm going to stop her. And it was always like a me versus you, right? And me, obviously, I'm on a team, but that's also what I realized I learned how to do really well, which I think sets a lot of athletes apart, is you have to want to be in that moment. You have to want to compete. And don't get me wrong, I went through ebbs and flows in college. I tore my labrum. I had surgery. I had a lot of pressure to get back. I went through a huge mental gap where I felt like I couldn't even serve the ball over the net at one point. But there was never a time where I was like, I am not going to compete. I stepped on the court, and the moment I got on the court, it was, we're playing to win. We're winning.
So what did you tear your labrum in college or high school?
My club season, my 18s year, I tore my labrum early in the season.
How'd you tear it? Fall on it?
I actually was diving for a ball, and a middle, those damn middles,
right, also
was like, I'm going to dive for it too. And so she dove into it as my arm was extended, and then I got it subluxed and tore my labrum. So then I wore a Soli. I was lucky because...
Did you finish playing with the torn labrum the whole season?
And then I played my freshman year of college with a torn labrum.
Oh, that had to be excruciating.
So I just had to wear a Soli, this sleeve that...
How did you serve?
I mostly didn't, because it would sublux and kind of pop out. And so in club at the time, I had two.
So you kept dislocating.
Yep. And it would just slip.
They had to do what's called, and you probably don't remember this, but they probably had to do a Bankart repair on you, not just a labrum repair.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. There's actually some real good research between two separate procedures. one that was developed in Europe by a guy named Latarjet, and then there's an arthroscopic Bankart repair, and the difference between how fast athletes return to sport between the two surgeries. But I guarantee you had if you kept dislocating, you had to have a Bankart repair.
Well, I have a twin sister. She actually had the same surgery in high school because her shoulder would pop out of place all the time.
Yeah.
Mine didn't happen until an injury, but hers.
Did she have? You don't know what she had either.
I don't know what she had either.
Did they just scope her? Did she just have little
she just has
incisions?
scopes, yeah.
Okay, then it's a Bankart repair.
Yeah. I just have scopes too.
Yeah.
So we both must have terrible shoulders, but.
Well, here, listen. So, like, when I train the volleyball players, I always do a little bit with the back and the posterior cuff to protect the shoulder when they're constantly serving, constantly hitting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have to protect the shoulder for sure. Now, if you're going to fall on an outstretched arm, you're tearing something.
So much.
You're going to, you know. But I'm just talking about preventing repetitive injury. You know what I mean? Versus traumatic, right? Traumatic, it is what it is, right? It's part of it, unfortunately. So, what position did you play in high school?
I played libero. So I wanted to hit, and then my freshman year, the head varsity coach was like, you're not going to be a hitter. You're going to be a varsity libero. And so I was like, which I still was like, dang, like I kind of want to play freshman or JV because I wanted to hit so bad. But I was the varsity libero my freshman year.
Okay, and so then you played libero all through high school. And then Washburn?
Yep, went to Washburn.
For college, and clearly you were probably a libero or there too.
Yep, so I was a libero or a defensive specialist, whether I played, 6 rotations or 3 my freshman year, and then sophomore year I DS'd, and then
So you played as a freshman at Washburn then?
Yep.
They didn't redshirt you or anything?
No.
Okay.
But I mean, it was a huge culture shock. I mean, my 18th year of club, I had just finished up playing with some of the best kids in the nation. We won an open national championship. I was, my head was probably like this big. I got on the all tournament team for nationals, right? And then I go into college, and honestly, I was like, I'm probably going to transfer. And I go in, and I played right away. I played a lot, but one of the biggest things that I learned my freshman year, my coach sat me down. He's like, hey, you're just not bubbly enough for us. We already have, excuse my language, he's like, we already have a bitch on the court. And he's like, and I can't have you as libero be that. I know you're intense. I know you like to compete, but I need you to, be a little more bubbly.
A cheerleader.
And I remember being like, what? And, so that was a huge culture shock. And the libero, who was a little bit more bubbly, she was a couple years older than me. So the next year, she, balled out, hands down, won the libero spot. And that was when I started realizing, like, the dynamics of a team makes a huge difference. Her positivity, all the girls look to her as, like, the energy, the positivity person.
Here, and
that
in
was
volleyball,
big for me to learn.
Well, in volleyball, that person is huge.
Huge.
Because I have never seen a sport where the quicksand analysis is more evident. Where like one thing goes wrong, and then next thing you know, I mean, it's 22-16, and shit, now you're in a tie game.
Yep.
And I've never.
And your demeanor is constantly making a huge difference on your team, on how the rest of the team plays.
For sure.
So.
For sure. I mean, your body language, your attitude, you have to have that one girl that can go to the other 5 and say, come on, guys, we're fine. It's okay.
Yep.
And get them to believe it. Yeah.
And and it has to be genuine, I think that it was a huge learning process for me to, one, and just in all honesty, be super happy for her while she was on the court. Because it's easy as a player to be like, I want to be out there and be pretty selfish. So it was a huge learning curve for me my sophomore year. And I was like, I want to be a great teammate. I'm going to be happy for her. I'm going to be her biggest cheerleader, the libero at the time. And then I started learning what she was doing, what made her successful, what made all the players look to her. Because I had gotten by in high school and club, like just kind of being a bitch and telling people they need to get their head on and telling them what to do and being super aggressive. And then that's just when I realized, like, that isn't my role here. If there's already someone that's doing that, then you have to adjust your role.
Yeah.
And so I was learning how to adjust my role because I felt like people had to adjust to me.
Yeah, that's not the case,
Nope.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, and as an alpha male, and you're clearly, you're an alpha as well. I get that, because that was kind of tough for me in college as well, because they didn't need some freshmen coming in trying to be an alpha, right? I mean, I came from a 2A football team, and there was only me and 3 other guys were the team captains. Okay? Nowadays, on a football team, you got double that as captains. You know what I mean? You may have 6 or 7 captains on a football team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that role is divided up more. You know what I mean? So you don't have to put it all on you.
Yeah.
And when I was in here, not even that, like, I didn't come off the field when I was in high school. Kickoff, punt, offense, defense. So when I went to college and only played offense, that was a tough adjustment. And now even in high school at Pius, we have very few kids that'll play both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Oh, that was the same with me. I mean, I was voted a team captain my junior year of high school. And again, like, rarely ever, came off the court. Rarely ever didn't play and was libero. And then my senior year of high school, again, captain, never left, But then I realized when I look back, though, it was easy for me to hold that spot and to, like, think that that's the demeanor that I needed to have.
Well, and I think
That's different when you go to...
And you're about 12. You're 33? Mm-hmm. So you're 12 years younger than me. So it was probably even easier for me than it was for you, but it is way harder for these kids than it was for me when I was their age. Way harder. Mm-hmm. High school, grade school, all of it. It is just, I don't know what the hell happened, but there's just, coaches have so many more options nowadays, it seems like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the game has changed, and I'm talking about from a football standpoint, but the game has changed so much that your personnel can change based on what the other team is trying to do. That was not the case when I played. If you were an outside linebacker, you were playing outside linebacker every week. You know what I mean? And the game allowed you to do that. But in the game that we play now, what the other team's doing, they may say, man, I don't know that I want to play this kid at outside linebacker this week. The demands of that position are changing, and so now we got to put a different type of athlete out there.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden, a kid who started the week before may not be starting this week because of what the other team's trying to do. And not unless you're one of those kids who's an incredibly diverse athlete, which
yeah.
I wasn't. I was talking to one of the coaches for the Necco Raiders, and I said, there's athletes sometimes that are shitty football players, and then there's athletes that are great football players. But then there's guys that aren't athletes that can be really good football players too, and that was kind of me. I just was, I could run fast and I liked hitting. And back then, in a football game, you were fine. They would find a spot for you. But there's way more finesse nowadays in the game, and I don't know how has volleyball changed to that point too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, if you're not making adjustments every match, every set, during the set, based on what the other team is doing, then you're not winning.
Right.
Right? Like, everything about volleyball is being able to make an adjustment. And that's a big mental shift that you have to train kids to be able to do.
Well, and
because they don't want to change. They don't want to come off the court. They don't understand necessarily why they're doing that because you haven't taught a kid strategy.
Well,
So
and
now we have to teach the kids strategy early on so that they understand and can play their role, whatever that role is.
and are they even capable? Really? Like, I mean, so when you're talking about the executive function part of the brain, it's really not developed until, in a male, until you're like 25 years old. You know what I mean? I don't know that I would have been able to. I'd have been like, you know, I wouldn't have liked to come off the field ever.
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 I still don't like coming off the court.
Yeah.
I jump in and I play right now. I mean, really, one of the reasons I started coaching, so I had my son in college, took a year off, had him. The next year, I was like, look, I want to be around the game. Can I be a student assistant coach? So I was in school assisting and going to all the things. And during practices, if I had any opportunity to jump in, I would jump in and play. And then the head coach was like, do you want to play again? And my son was about to turn 2. And I went out and played another year after.
Right.
But it was hard for me. Like, I loved coaching. I loved the game. I wanted to be around it. I learned a lot on the coaching side of it. But I, like, always want to be on the court.
How much did coaching for a couple years help you in that last season that you played?
Oh, so much. Like, when you're coaching and teaching someone, the game evolves in your head. Like, you see the game different. You see movements, biomechanics different.
It's interesting that you're saying that because, as I addressed earlier, the Ashley Van Boxmeer podcast, she tore her ACL 2 years and didn't miss a practice and didn't miss a game or anything like that. But she said her tearing her ACL helped her go from good to great because she learned to pick signs, call defenses, shift defenses, and do all those, see the game through a different set of eyes.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So she said it was, that ACL injury made her go from good to great by being able to sit back and analyze it.
Oh, yeah. Because, and it's different, right? I tried now, like all the coaches that I've ever learned from, that I've ever been coached by, I understood what made them successful. They saw the game. They saw strategy. They knew what we needed to do. But what a lot of them did was just told us what to do. So we were like, okay, learn to execute. But we didn't understand why.
You didn't know the why behind it.
So it wasn't until college that I'm understanding a lot more why.
Yeah.
I'm able to sit back. I'm able to see. I'm able to like understand what is happening on the other side, what adjustment we need to make, and then what we need to do to execute to score.
Yeah.
And as a coach, like I'm always telling, even at 13s with Gianna's team, I'm like, how are we going to score this next point? Going up and taking a rip at the ball as hard as you can might not be how we win the point, right? Sometimes tipping might be. And so that's really hard to teach kid. But my main goal is that my athletes learn why they're doing stuff so that eventually, if I do my job well, they're seeing what the other team is doing. They're making a strategy, and then they're executing the strategy. That's my goal.
Right.
For my teams as I move up with them.
Yeah. You know, I wish there was a way that I could convey to kids how important it is to see the game through the eyes of a coach and how much it'll help you. I mean, I wouldn't have been receptive to it. When I was in high school, I just like, okay, on this play, this is my job. And that's all I knew. And I didn't know what everyone else was supposed to be doing. I didn't try to concern myself with that. This play, this is my job. Tunnel vision, do your job. And I guess that's okay too, but understanding what everyone else is supposed to be doing can also help you be a coach on the field, which is invaluable to a coach.
Yeah.
I
mean, think about Jared. Like Jared, my co-director, right? Like obviously shout out to Optimum. But
we got to get to them too.
Yeah. But he, was a college basketball player. Right?
Hold on, and regrets it.
Yeah, I think he could have went D1 for football.
Yes.
He was like, I know I could have done these things. But now he trains almost solely volleyball athletes.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
he
like-
was. He played at Excelsior Springs. I think he played on a state championship team maybe his junior year, and then his senior year, I think they lost in the semifinals to Park Hill, and he had D1 offers to play football.
He was like, basketball.
And in his mind at the time, you know, he was struggling with basketball, which drove him to want to play basketball. And he thought football for him was just too easy for him.
Yeah.
You know, and so he wanted, and he regrets it.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean, and but he never played the sport of volleyball, right? Like, it's not like that was him growing up. Like, he's learned it, fell in love with it, probably similar to your story, right? Like, oh, I enjoy this game, I like it, started coaching, is continuously learning strategy, learning, you know, what he has to do to convey to his kids so that they know what they're doing,
yeah.
right?
Well, and like here,
Totally
look
different side of it, coaching.
if
versus
you look
playing.
at a lot of the girls that I train, I mean, I don't know, I have some diversity. I have gymnasts, I have soccer players, I have basketball players, I have some football players, but the overwhelming majority of the the athletes that I train are volleyball players. But like today, one girl goes, "Hey, is it okay if I do this?" And I'm like, "Hold on. I could teach you to run faster and jump higher." I said, "You're going to have to ask my wife on that one. I don't even kind of ask me on your approach what you're supposed to do. I have no idea. I can get you to run faster and jump higher, which, you know, that's going to help you on the court, but you're going to have to ask Michelle on that other stuff." So, you know, I mean, here, I don't know anything
But
about
ultimately, a coach is a coach is a coach. To me, like, if
Yeah.
you can be a great coach in something and you can learn the game and grow, like, you know, you have to evolve and grow with the game, and you can coach because coaching is an art, then you can kind of learn any sport and be able to be an effective coach.
As a physical therapist, I had to rehab all types of athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, male, female, soccer players. I mean, and rehabbing a male and rehabbing a female is totally different.
Yeah.
A female is way more injury prone, especially for the lower extremity, just because of the
Q
the Q
Yeah.
angle. The Q angle. They're 100% going to be more injury prone.
Yeah.
And this may piss people off, but there are fucking differences, excuse me, between males and females. So you have to
You have
train
to know
them differently.
the biomechanics of the human body.
But they're also going to be more ligament dependent
Yeah.
because they don't have as much skeletal muscle, assuming they're not supplementing anything, right? They're going to be more ligament dependent than a male is. Here, if you ask me over my 19 years as a physical therapist, what's the highest probability of an ACL tear? It's a female soccer player. 1,000%. It's a female. It's not a male football player. It is a female soccer player. Ask me who has the most head injuries. It's a soccer player.
Oh, wow.
So I love these parents that are like, I ain't letting my kids play football. I'm like, okay, so what do they play? Soccer, dummies. You know what I mean? It's like, I just get the biggest kick out of it because concussions and non-contact injuries, it is way more soccer than there is football.
Yeah.
Way more.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, like, coaching men and women too, you know, I say coach is coach, but obviously you have to know how to work with people. What I mean by that is, like, if you are a good coach, you know how to work with people. And then your job as a coach is to figure out how to get that person, male or female, whatever sport they are, to be able to do something, right? Like, that is what coaches do. They motivate, they inspire, they are teaching life lessons. Like, it's way more than a sport. Like,
Here, and look at, like, if I'm training a volleyball player, I don't train them like here. Yeah, they want to be able to run faster and jump higher and you have good lateral movement and being able to change directions. But I don't train a volleyball player like I train a basketball player.
Yeah.
Because a basketball player is going to have to do that shit when they're dead dog tired. And maybe they ran up and down the court 10 times before they may have to change direction and pivot and do it.
Yeah.
Volleyball players don't have to do that. The demand of the sport doesn't make them have to do that. And a football player, you're not going to train. Football players go hard for 8 seconds and then they got 30, 25, 30 seconds in
Yeah,
the huddle.
that's similar to a volleyball.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the amount of time that a rally is going is probably anywhere between a few seconds to like 20 seconds, 30-second rally is a long rally
Yeah.
for a volleyball player.
Yeah.
Like, I think going upwards of a minute, I think in
You're
the
fine.
NCAA, there was like a few rallies that got close to like 45 seconds or
Which is
60
an
seconds.
eternity.
Forever.
It's forever.
So you don't train a volleyball player or a football player to like go.
And then your soccer players and your wrestlers, those guys got to be able to go.
Their endurance is crazy.
It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
3 minutes is an eternity. And I have a couple of jujitsu guys that I train. They got to go 6 minutes. And
yeah.
sometimes, if they're competing in a tournament where it's they say tap out, blackout, which is typically they'll say either tap out or you go until someone taps. You got to train that guy way different.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that guy's got to be able to go, 20, 30 minutes maybe. You know how long that is? I mean, it's insane. And that's why you look at some of these heavyweight boxers and, they have muscle wasting. They're like, oh, that guy don't look like much. Okay, well, the guy that's ripped to shreds that weighs 220, that guy's not going to be able to fight.
His endurance is like
He's got to win in the
Probably gonna
first
be
3
there.
or 4 rounds or he's
going for a
screwed.
knockout.
Yeah, he's screwed. It's just that muscle mass is going to take too much fuel.
Yeah.
So you could if you look at a guy going across each other and one guy's 220 and just jacked and the other guy's 220 and kind of flaccid, the longer that fight goes, the more the flaccid guy has a shot at winning.
Oh yeah.
Just because of
Energy systems. And
yeah.
How they're going to use that
VO2
energy.
max
Yeah.
and the VO2 max of that guy that's got a ton of muscle, that guy's going to have to be through the roof. And even then, he ain't going to make it. Now here, you look at Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, he was jacked, but he was also what? What did he?
135
Yeah,
or
maybe something like that. Yeah, he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, but let's give the shout out to Flash and Optimum. So the
Yeah.
Optimum is the volleyball club that you coach at, and they coach out at Flash Performance. Jared and Derek Smith,
And Greg Carbon.
Greg Carbon, who's the strength and conditioning coach for the Chiefs.
Yep. They own.
Who
Flash.
may be another guy that I need to get on here.
Yeah.
I definitely got to call him because I want to pick his brain anyway.
Oh.
As a
he's-
strength and conditioning
he's fun
coach.
To talk to.
The most humble guy in the world too. So nice.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yep.
Um,
So they own Flash. They all met, I think, after college, because I had asked them their story a little bit, and I'm sure they'll come on and tell their story. But I met Jared through coaching in Liberty, a small club, Liberty Explosion. COVID happened. Our season our season ended, and Jared calls me up. And I think it was during COVID still. Like, I hadn't even gone back to work yet. I was working for the Army still, running a wellness center for the Army. And he calls me back. He calls me up and he's like, I have obviously one single court at Flash, but I think I want to start a club. Do you want to kind of be the volleyball person for it? I was like, yeah, let's do it. And next thing you know, we were running one team out of there. Not under Optimum, it was under another name. And then the next year we had 4 teams, and then 5, and then last year we had 10 or 11, and
that
this
were
year
all
we'll have
competitive.
12.
That were all did very well.
Yeah, I mean, we're growing, and
I mean, Gianna's team almost qualified. I don't know if you remember, but they beat the number 1 and number 2 team in the bracket, and then they went 0-2.
yeah.
But not only did they go 0-2, if you remember, they didn't split the set. They lost 2 games in a row. And I'm like, how did you guys just do that? You just beat the number 1 and
One
number 2.
2, and then the other one we couldn't.
And then you go 0-2 twice,
Yeah.
which probably saved me, I don't know how much money from not having to fly to wherever we were going to have to
Wherever
go to.
Nationals
But
was.
either way, I'm like, how did you guys do that?
One of the reasons that there's a few things that I want to touch on. One, like, I barely remember some of these games. I do remember the one you're talking about because I'm like, there's no way we shouldn't have won that, because everything was going well. It was really, everything was clicking, firing on all cylinders. But I tell people, you know, you're going to remember very little of what you do in sports and athletics throughout, you know, your youth and high school, college, right? You're going to remember how people made you feel. You're going to remember your relationships. You might remember glimpses, right? But I'm like, my national championship game, like I remember looking at our fans. They're all wearing tie-dye shirts. I remember how I felt during. I remember shaking hands and then being up on a podium. I don't remember the game.
Yeah.
Like what we, you know, focus on in sports sometimes is like winning, winning, winning. I don't remember my record that year. I don't remember my record any year I've ever played. Do I sometimes remember like the outcome or how the season ended? Yeah, but like I don't remember how many wins and losses I've ever had in my life. I don't remember those type of things.
That's like football. Like I remember the times in the locker room.
Yes.
You know,
Dance parties.
you know, you remember.
We had our at Washburn, UCM was our rival, and we hung up a piñata, like a donkey piñata, before we played University of Central Missouri, and we just wailed out a piñata. Like I remember that so much more vividly than I remember some of the games.
Yeah.
So the reason that Jared and I think get along so well is we understand that our jobs as coaches, our jobs as mentors is to help these athletes learn life skills, learn again how to compete, how to fight for things, how to not give up, how to be great teammates, how to communicate well, how to have confidence, how to do these things. And that is what our focus is. It's easy to go focus, like you said, on winning. It's easy for us to be like, 4 years into our club, we should have more teams winning. Well, our focus is developing kids, developing athletes. And again, sometimes that's hard, but
and this is something
that's why Jared and I get along so well. We have a really similar mindset on what we want for our athletes, what we want for our club. We want to give back to the community.
I'll just say this about Jared and Derek. So I'm in the process of potentially opening up a gym where we do combat cardio as well as there's going to be weights and all that stuff there. And it's in the very beginning phases. And I started talking to a commercial real estate guy. We just found a space. But and number one, the reason why I want to do it is because I love combat cardio. It's the funnest form of cardio for me. And it also can teach you can learn something as you're doing it and have some type of self-defense and stay in shape. Great. Okay. But I told my wife, I said, I'm still going to train all my athletes at Flash. And the reason why I want to continue to do that is I love being around Jared and Derek Smith. I love those two guys are the type of people that I want to be around. They are. And Michelle said, really? I said, I will 100. Number one, the gym that I'm going to do would be conducive to training people our age. Mm-hmm. Right?
Different demographic.
Different demographic. But your athletes, they need to be at Flash. Yeah. That facility is for athletes. Yeah. Well, that's number one. Number two, I like being around Jared and Derek Smith.
Well, and Jared and Derek both were raised, in a Christian home. And so everything, Jared is great at reminding me. It took me a long time to have faith and understand faith and know what that was. But almost everything that I think both of them do is grounded on their foundation of being Christians,
and
right?
For that reason, they will succeed.
Yep.
They will succeed.
We had a shirt made specifically this year because Jared and I talk all the time how we kind of need to remind ourselves what we're doing this for, why we do these things, because it's easy to get wrapped up in winning or sending kids to nationals or doing whatever. But he's like, if we have faith, if we pray and we have we're really intentional about what we want, then we can put all of our efforts into that. And that's when we're going to really start to see our prayers being answered. And I do think that is a huge reason that they're successful. They'll always be successful. And I think that I'm absolutely grateful that Jared's in my life and that he wanted to start this with me, because he continues to push me as a person, as a Christian. We got shirts made this year specifically that says faith, family, volleyball, right? We never want people to confuse the order of what we believe things should
Well,
be.
order affects outcome.
Right.
Order affects outcome. So Simone is incredibly faith-based. And there are some coaches on Pius that are incredibly comfortable talking about their faith, and there are some that aren't. Myself, Coach Reyes, Coach Simone, Coach Palminteri, Coach Ross, we are incredibly comfortable being, faith leaders. Some guys, it's not that they don't have faith, but they just don't just discuss it that much. And the good thing about that is there's times when we're coaching where we will lose sight of what our mission is. And there's always a coach, one of the guys that I just mentioned, who can step up and say, hey, let's remember why we're here.
Yeah.
That's
Jared does that for me.
Yeah.
And one of the things, too, that Jared said, and I want to talk about this part, too, because we were just talking at the beginning when we were kind of just chatting before we started about cutting kids during tryouts, right? The leading up to tryouts, there is obviously a ton of stress on kids. No kid wants to get cut. Everyone wants to make a team. And I was coming to the gym and I'm telling Jared, I'm like, I'm feeling anxious, because there's a lot of kids that I want to make it more than anything, and I can't want it more than them, obviously, but they're putting in work, they're working hard. But as we've gotten bigger, we have, better athletes coming in, or we have bigger athletes coming in, and it does make a difference. And so we have to have this balance of okay, what is our goal? What's our mission? And he came in, he's like, I prayed about it in church today. He's like, more than anything, I just want to pray for peace for these kids, peace for our coaches, peace for our club, and that we know that we're out here doing the very best we can, but we have to continuously remind ourselves and focus on what's important. It's easy to get overwhelmed with life, easy to get overwhelmed with failures or successes and forget about, what.
And it's interesting you talked about the church, the shirts. Our motto at Pius is love, faith, family, champions. And
cool.
on anytime he sends something out, he will put LFCC. It's always on every little thing he does. He's constantly planting that seed, LFCC, LFCC, LFCC. And even then, you still have to remind yourself why you're really doing what you're doing, right? And it's way bigger than wins and losses, right? Because coaching can really drain you. And if you're coaching only to win, in my opinion, if I was coaching only to win games, I would eventually quit.
Yeah.
I would quit. It's not enough motivation. It's too hard.
Yeah.
And it takes too much time away from your family, too much time away from your livelihood, too much time away from, and you're in a situation where you can it is your livelihood.
Yeah,
but
it is now.
Yeah, right, now it is. But for me, it's not. And so if I was only there to win, I'd quit.
But if I was also only there to win, I would not be coaching as my livelihood.
Right. No, I get you. I see what you're saying.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked for the Army for 10 years, and I coached there, right? I was helping soldiers be bigger, stronger, faster, more fit, help them get in shape, reduce stress, improve their nutrition, sleep better, all those things. And I think that piece really translates to kids. But what I realized, I'm like, we can make a huge impact on our youth. I realized that I had not a rough, by any means, a super rough upbringing, but my mom and I butted heads a lot. My twin sister lived with my dad 6 hours away. My older brothers lived with my dad. And so I, didn't get along with my mom. and I went to my coach. I went to her way more than I feel like I could open up to my mom and talk to my mom. But, my coach was hard on me. But for some reason, in the situation I was in, it was just different, right? And so when I look at like me as a coach and the impact that I have, obviously I could have done a lot of other things, I'm sure, and went further and done all these things, but I'm like, I don't even know where I would have been without that coach. So when I look at coaching and I look at like what we can do, the impact you have on youth, the impact you have on their mindset, their confidence, their, mental health is so big.
It's here. Mental health is way bigger problem now than it was when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And the coaches at Pius have to constantly remind me, like, hey, these kids are dealing with way more shit than we had to deal with. And most of it stems from that damn phone and social media. Mm-hmm. Because here we were even talking about, you ought to listen to the podcast with Simone on it. You'd really like them. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about this, Simone would love Jared to coach at Pius. They would get along so good. But that's here nor there. Where the hell was I going with this, Tessa? I lost my train of thought. Gosh darn it. I can't remember where I was going with it.
I mean, I'm just like, we again talking about like the impact that we have on kids and their mental health and those things,
He was saying when we were kids, who did we want to please? We wanted to please our dads. I wanted to please my dad. And my dad he was a really passive guy, but I still wanted to please him. He wasn't one of those dickhead dads, you know what I mean, that are constantly like grilling your kid. That wasn't my dad at all. But I still wanted to please him, and I wanted to please my coach. These kids, they want to please their friends.
Yeah.
There's been a shift in the paradigm to who they're trying to please, and it's like, guys, seriously, you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to do that.
Trying to please everyone.
No, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Like, yeah, you do want to please your teammates. You do want to play for your teammates. Like, I love that volleyball club that on the back of their shirt it says "Play for her." I love that concept, and by her, they're talking about the person next to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely love that concept. But that's a paradigm that needs to be, there needs to be a turn.
Like reintegrated almost.
Yes.
I tell people, again, one of the sayings that one of my coaches told me when I was playing down, I was, it's easy when you're doing bad to kind of like revert into yourself and look down, play down. You're not giving as much. And my coach was like, look, your team needs you. And for whatever reason, at that point, it clicked. And I told myself for the next 6 years that I played volleyball, in high school and college, like whenever anything happened, my team needs me. And I'm always, obviously, you have to play well enough to continue to be on the court, so you got to please your coach. But I also had to learn, like, everything I'm doing is so that we can all be successful. Right?
Yeah.
If I worry about myself, that gets my team nowhere.
That is when the anxiety starts to come, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Stephen Furtick? Mm-mm. Stephen Furtick, he has this, it's called Elevation Church. He's a pastor. But I love listening to this guy. And when I went through a bout of anxiety, I was like frantically, like, I'm not scared of a lot of stuff. I'm scared of anxiety. Okay. I mean, I went through a 3-week bout of anxiety that if somebody would have said, here, take this heroin and your anxiety will go away, I might have taken it. It was that bad. And I started searching for anxiety and anxiety in the Bible and anxiety sermons. And I came across what I would say was one of the most powerful messages that I've ever heard. And it was from Stephen Furtick, and he talked about pride and anxiety. And he said they are package deals. Period, case closed. If you have anxiety, you have to check your pride. And he even spelled the words pride and anxiety, put them up on the screen. And he said, if you look at the middle letter of each word, the middle letter is I. And he said, if you listen to the way you talk, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. I. And you put yourself at the center, and that is the cause of your anxiety.
Yeah.
He said, if you ditch the pride, the anxiety will go with it. And then he even pointed a Bible verse, and I remember it: humble yourself under the mighty hand of God. And it said, cast all your cares on him. And it said, you can read it as two commands: humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, cast all your cares on him. Or you can read it as one command, one result. Humble yourself's the command. The result is you'll cast all your cares onto him. And I mean, I remember listening to the sermon, and it just like it freed me, because anxiety it could bind you.
Oh yeah.
Depression, anxiety, that shit can bind you. And it really was like, okay, okay, so I have anxiety. What am I trying to control that I have no business trying to control right now?
Yeah.
Where am I putting myself in the center that I need to take myself out of the center and start thinking about other people?
Yeah. I'm sure that I have like a natural anxiety, because when I thought back to it, I'm like, all of my jobs, like working for the Army, helping people be healthy, coaching, being a director, like everything that I do that I honestly fill up as much of my time as possible is to focus on other people. And, and some people will say, that's good, that's bad, being overly busy is not great. Sometimes I wasn't the best mom in the world because I'm giving so much to everyone else. Sometimes
that happens to every single coach.
Relationships and everything, right?
Yeah.
But I know that still at the focal point of everything that I do is so that I can help people and help other people be successful, which I think for the most part has managed my anxiety. When I'm not doing anything, I'm like,
idle minds, devil playground.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I think, if you take a look at, there are people who there's chemical imbalances. I don't want anyone to listen to this and think that I don't think that depression and anxiety is real. I think that there's definitely some chemical imbalances, but I think if you solely try to fight it with not money, but medicine, if you solely try to fight that problem with medicine, I think you're going to lose it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they say exercise is the very best, when you look at anything you could prescribe for depression and anxiety, that exercise is one of the best things that you can prescribe.
I had two friends check themselves into inpatient facilities for depression and anxiety. In both facilities, the first thing they did was take all the sugar out of their diet.
Yeah. So diet, what we're putting in our
Diet
body.
and exercise.
And exercise. Like if, we push that all the time when we look at chronic disease, and we worked a lot about this, or worked on this in the Army. The two things that we have most control over are diet and exercise. And that's going to affect our mental health, our social health, how our cognitive function, everything that we do. If we focus on eating well and exercising, a lot of those things can be managed better.
Well, here,
right?
If
but
you
that's
look,
not the first thing that doctors are doing saying.
If you look at where serotonin comes from, it comes from your gut. It comes from your stomach. So
what we're eating.
So when you eat terribly, you can't even produce serotonin. And then if you look at all the research behind exercise, I mean, it floods you with serotonin.
Yeah.
It floods you with the happy hormones. And that's why, like, I know some people who are like, I hate working out. I'm like, you know what? There's times I don't want to go do it either. I don't do it to look good. I mean, looking decent is a byproduct, because my diet still isn't the best, right? I mean, it's better, but I work out for here. When I injure myself and I can't go to the gym, this is the first thing that goes to shit. Yeah. My sleep-wake patterns are crap. I get moody. My drive plummets into the abyss. My wife will tell you I am miserable when I'm injured because I can't go to the gym.
I had a friend go check themselves inpatient, working a lot on mental health, and when this is just the one little thing that always stuck with me. Exercise is a great form for a lot of people's mental health, but there are times that we can't do it. So we also have to have tools in our toolbox and our toolkits, right, to be able to control and manage our anxiety, our thoughts, our behaviors, right? And so a lot of that, like, again, with the Army and in our wellness center, mindfulness, meditation, visualization, those are all things that Jared and I also are really wanting to bring into sport, because there's always going to be a time that you can't exercise.
Yeah.
You're going to be anxious in class. You can't just get up and leave and go work out.
Right.
Right? You're going to be, feeling down or depressed, and you might have an injury. You might be nursing an injury. You can't just go out on a 3-mile run. So what are we also training ourselves, our athletes, our youth, on how to mentally, change our thought patterns, which is going to change how we feel, which is going to change how we behave. And so that's a huge part of sport now, right? Sports psychologists are huge.
You should read that book, The New Mental Toughness Training for Athletes. A buddy of mine, he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. His name's Luke Josephine, gave me the book, and I'm telling you, what a book. I mean, it literally talks about inability to rest while you're injured is not a sign of mental toughness. It is actually mentally weak.
Yeah.
To not be able to rest your body, rest your mind, that is mental weakness. So for all those people, myself included, who were taught play through pain,
Oh yeah.
Well, but look at me. Look what it did to me. I've had 4 shoulder surgeries, a back surgery, 1 shoulder surgery here, 4 knee surgeries. And my body's beat to shit because I adopted that mentality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when I hear do you could play through pain, but you should not play through injury.
Yeah. We talk about hey, is this discomfort or is it pain?
Which is different.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Right? If you are in pain, that's different,
Yeah.
Whereas, there's a ton of kids, my son included, he's like, oh, this hurts. I'm like, is it pain or are you...
Yeah.
Is this
like
discomfort?
Frankie George, the 3rd day of tryouts, he's like, Dad, my thighs, they're killing me. I'm like, okay, yeah, right, because you haven't done this.
Were you like, oh, you should have been working out a little bit more all summer?
Right. Yeah, instead of sitting there playing that stupid game, which we have taken, we don't give him the game free reign, Plus, we made him work out with Jared. We made him work out with Jalen. Because my kids, like Gianna, I can train.
Yeah.
I can train Gianna. She's old enough. Frankie and Gemma, Gemma's... I trained with Gemma in a group one time, and Gemma goes, Dad, you're going to kill somebody. And then all of a sudden, that exact same day, one of the girls I was training walked into the bathroom at Flash and threw up everywhere. And Gemma goes, see?
Yeah.
But
even to kind of plug on that, we didn't use, and it's hard. I never want to tell parents, hey, you need to spend the money to do these things. But if you're not, what is your kid doing? Because as a kid, I was outside all the time. My son, all boy, he loves playing outside, loves being outside. Don't get me wrong, he loves gaming. He would game for hours and hours and hours. But I've never had to force him to enjoy being outside and playing and being active and just moving his body.
Yeah.
As a kid, when we were younger, that's all we did, right? We moved our body.
Do you really? You're a little bit more unnerved to let your kid out of your sight. I don't know if that's our generation, because when I was a kid, my parents, there's here, just come home when the lights are on. You know what I mean? I don't let my kids go do that. Now, maybe our generation's more paranoid. Maybe we have a reason to be. Maybe we're more aware of things that our parents aren't. Maybe. And I've analyzed this, is there things going on now that weren't going on then? Or was it going on then, but they just never talked about it, and it wasn't
Yeah.
thrown in your face as much.
I don't
And
think it was thrown in media, all those things.
yeah.
But think about the best way that a kid learns their body mechanics, proprioception, playing.
Plain.
Playing.
Here, I had a guy call me. His son's 8 years old. I'm like, dude, do not pay me to train your son.
Yeah. But the thing is if they aren't, that's why I'm saying I never want to tell a parent that, but if they aren't paying someone to do it, is their kid going to go out and play?
Right.
Is their kid going to go out and enjoy doing those things? And so it's hard because I want all of my athletes to go do, training with Jared or Derek or you, right? I want all of them to be doing something outside of just sport.
Well, here now,
I want them to go lift. I want them to get stronger. I want them to run and jump and do things that are challenging their mind.
And I told Gianna,
Through exercise.
And Gianna's 13, so it's different. But the guy that I was talking to, I was like, just go let him play on the jungle gym for an hour. You'll get just as much for free as you would paying me $100 an hour. Go let him play on the jungle gym. Yeah. And this is coming from a guy who makes money off doing this. So, and he's like, okay, there you go. So I said, call me.
I'd be curious to see how often that has occurred, though.
Good, like here. And I should have said, hey, if you're not going to let them go do that, then yeah, spend the money on me. I should have.
If they don't enjoy it, if they go out to a jungle gym and they're by themselves.
That's no fun.
Right? That's why the classes at Flash are great to get kids in.
Right.
Because they're playing with other kids and they turn training into playing and being with other kids and competing against other kids and stuff that we didn't used to have to control.
You have to control it.
And now we have to control it.
Yeah. Because I remember the neighborhood I lived in, Brooktree, when I was a kid, you could go down to that park that was just diagonal from my house, and there would be 20 kids down there at any time during the summer. And if you go drive by that same park right now, it's a ghost town.
Oh, yeah.
It's a ghost town.
Yeah.
So times have definitely, and a lot of that has to do with, one, back then, I look at all those kids, I can name them all in my head right now. None of the moms worked. They were all stay-at-home moms. And now moms work. If you're going to be able to even kind of keep your head above water, you need to have a second income. Not unless you're one of the few lucky guys that's making $300,000-$400,000 a year. Then
but I'm a single mom. Like, how many single moms are out
Right.
there now?
Right.
And that just,
it's a lot. Father absence is a big deal.
Yeah.
It is a big deal. So
single income and how do I control and manage what my kid's doing when I'm at the gym while I'm working? Sometimes it's dragging him to the gym. No, you are gonna foam roll. You're gonna do a workout. You're gonna do something. You can assist me.
Yeah.
You can do anything.
And Frankie, for the most part, if I say, "Hey, go swim, go out," we got the pool. Go outside right now. He gets off and he'll go.
Yeah.
But if not, he will sit there. And I've heard this guy I can't remember his name. He's a sports scientist guy, and he's like, you show me a kid that can play a video game for 8 hours a day, and I'll show you a future addict. And there's a lot of research that suggests it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because if you look at these damn phones, everything they do is geared to keep your eyes on that device.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I feel bad when I say this, but if I allowed people to have access to me as much as like people are calling or texting or emailing, like I would be on my phone 24/7. Don't get me wrong. I still try to maintain relationships and I'm still doing work on my phone.
Right.
But we could spend our whole days on our phone. And so there are times I'm like responding to texts or calls sometimes like 5 days later. And I'm like, look, right now I have the mental time and space and energy to respond to you. And if I tried to respond to everyone as fast as I could, like I would not have a life other than being on my phone.
Me and my wife, when I first started coaching football, we've been married 12 years. It was just 12 years this past April. We've been married 12 years. We've never had we've been very lucky. We've had a lot of shit happen to us. We've never had a rough patch. I mean, we have a fantastic relationship. When I first started coaching football in 2020 was our first rough patch. And we called one of the pastors at our church, him and his wife, and we're like, hey, will you guys meet with us? And we went and met with them. And they gave us tons of tips. But I remember one thing he said. He was actually on this podcast, Pastor Kurt Vinery. He was on this. He said to me, he said, no one other than your wife should have full access to you. No one. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And that was part of my issue. And so you know what I do now? My phone is on Do Not Disturb at all times. And if you call my phone right now, it will go straight to voicemail. The only person, because I have it on Do Not Disturb, and then it'll say allow calls from, and I put favorites. And in my favorites, I have my wife and my kids and my nephew, Giorgio. No one else can get a hold of me. No one else can get a hold of me. Those are the only ones that can call me and get a hold of me at any time. And one time, my nephew gave my phone to my mom, and she called me from his phone. I'm like, if your ass does that again, I'm taking you off the favorites list. I said, do not do that. I said, nobody is getting a hold of me. Because my mom called me and she's like, hey, you want to have Boston on Sunday? And I'm like, and I was in the middle of, I don't know, 100 million things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Giorgio, you don't do that. You know, and my mom listens to all my podcasts, so she's going to probably but she knows now. I mean, anytime anyone calls me, it goes straight to voicemail every time. And all my friends, they get pissed at me. It's like, you know what? I don't care. I have the football coaches at Pius on a group text, the defensive coaches at Pius on a group text, the weight room guys at Pius on a group text. I have the football coaches at the Necco Raiders.
Your phone would be dinging
all day long.
Yep.
You can't get anything done.
Yep.
I'm not doing it. I'm just not. I have it on Do Not Disturb
just
at all
my
times.
son's sports apps, and then my Sports U for every team that we have, right? Like during the season, you know, games, updates, messages, emails. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's overwhelming.
It's
and if we
overwhelming.
allow it to be, right? It's overwhelming. It is overwhelming. And there's the demands that you just kind of have to have responsibility and be able to like buckle down and do it. But sometimes we just allow.
You have to decompress.
Yeah.
And when I go home tonight, you know, and I'm done with all this and all work and everything's done, I won't even look at it. Because I'm not going to go home and be there and not present.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just not going to do that. I'm just not. So I should tell everyone that you are Gianna's volleyball coach, and you don't coach Gemma's volleyball. Michelle coaches Gemma.
I will.
Eventually, but my kids
I'm assisting
also.
the 12s. I'm assisting Michelle this year.
Yeah, my kids, both girls, play for Optimum. I'm trying to get Frankie to play volleyball and get this idea that it's a girl sport out of his head. Because there was that kid at that hitting class that kid was a savage.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and I saw him
men's
training.
volleyball is also growing.
Yeah.
Now Missouri has high school.
Pius has a boys volleyball team.
Boys teams, yeah.
Yeah. And that kid, I was watching him train with Derek. I'm like, this kid's a monster of an athlete. And he said Derek told me, he's like, when that kid shifted from basketball to volleyball, everything changed. He started to get confidence. He just naturally was a good volleyball player, and everything changed. And I'm like, man, this dude is fun to watch.
We definitely want to have boys teams. And I think the interest is growing.
Yeah.
Right now in Kansas City, there's just not a ton of boys volleyball, but I mean, Jared and I talk about it a lot. We're like, we need a boys team.
Dude, I would love if I could, because look Frankie's arms hang down to his knees. Yeah. You know, I'm like,
let me coach him too.
I'm like,
I'll coach all three kids.
What's the difference? You know, I mean, and he's gonna be, you know, so Frankie's XXY. I don't know if you knew that. So in utero, with Gianna and the twins, we did what would be an amniocentesis, but it was called a CVS. It was something they did later. Amniocentesis, I think they do earlier, but I don't remember. But either way, it's a karyotype to determine what they were looking for is like Down syndrome and stuff like that. And it wasn't like we were going to do anything in the event that one of the kids was Downs. Number one, I didn't want to wonder for 9 months. Number two, I didn't want to be surprised in the delivery room, you know, because my dad was like, what the hell are you doing that for? My dad, like, you want to talk about strong.
I mean, I think everyone does it now.
Yeah.
I think everyone does these. It's very common.
Yeah, because my dad was like, you want to talk about a strong Catholic. I mean, my dad was a strong Catholic. And he's like, what the hell you need to do that for? You ain't doing anything. I'm like, no, I know, Dad. I know that. I just want to know. I just don't want to be surprised. So anyway, we were able to find out that Frankie was XXY. So his XXY, 46XXY, I think that's a sex chromosome. It's called Klinefelter syndrome, but they don't produce any testosterone. So then what happens is when they go through puberty, nothing changes, right? They don't get secondary sex characteristics. Genitals won't grow. They won't get facial hair. They won't get body hair. They won't get any of that stuff, right? And probably 90% of the people that have it have no idea that they have it. They just think, oh, I'm a late bloomer. And then all of a sudden they're 20 years old and they didn't go through puberty. So now we go to a pediatric endocrinologist, and what they're looking for, so like if you know the feedback loop, and you may, so basically what happens is the pituitary gland will submit follicle stimulating hormone, which then tells the testes to go ahead and produce testosterone. And so that's how it communicates.
Yeah.
Well, they will have the follicle stimulating hormone, but his testes won't produce testosterone. So what the pediatric endocrinologist is looking for is to see that FSH and luteinizing hormone levels to rise, which tells her, hey, his body's ready for testosterone, and then they'll start supplementing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but when we were in there, they took all kinds of x-rays of him, and she said, he's going to be about 6'3". And I'm like, dude.
Let's make him a volleyball
Do
player.
you have any idea?
Yeah.
I'm like, because Michelle, clearly she's got height on her side. Not that much from her, but her dad, her grandpa was super tall. So she's got height on. There's no Terminis that are above 5'7". Well, I shouldn't say that. My brother Andrew's 6 foot. So, but other than that, that's from my mom's side of the family. But no Terminis. We're all 5'8". So I'm like, son, you got to play volleyball. Come on. You can play basketball too, because he loves basketball.
Yeah.
He loves basketball.
Good thing they're not the same season.
Right. I'm like, dude, let's play both.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know, maybe when the time comes, because we just went to the pediatric endocrinologist in June, and she said his FSH levels are rising, but not to the point where I want to give him testosterone yet. Let's recheck it. So now we got to get rechecked every 6 months, and so that we know when to start giving it to him. And then once they start giving it to him, she'll check him every 6 months too. I really liked his endocrinologist, but anyway, who knows what happens? Like when he starts getting testosterone, he could very well do the same thing I did, and all of a sudden like contact sports, right? Because I didn't like them until I was probably 12 when I started to go through puberty, and then I was like, okay, this is great. Let's kill someone.
Yeah.
Well,
and boys and girls too. Like they go through those puberty phases a little bit different, right? But like from a 13, 14-year-old female to by the time they're like freshmen in high school, they've gone through a big physical growth.
Yeah.
So you're gonna see girls get a lot taller.
Yeah. And I told Gianna
in middle
that.
school and then maybe early high school, whereas boys, you might see that all throughout high school. Their physical.
And I told Gianna too. I'm like, sis, I said, yeah, you're one of the better players a lot of times when you step on a volleyball court, especially if you step on with kids your age, because 12-year-old girls, she's gonna shine. I'm like, but let me tell you something. Them same 12-year-old girls, when they're 15 or 16, if you start slipping, they will pass your ass up. I've seen it happen over and over again, because she was like, Dad, I don't want to do vertical today. I played volleyball 3 days this week. I said, sis, how many volleyball players played volleyball 3 days this week? She said, probably all of them. I said, so did you separate yourself at all?
Yeah.
And she said, well, really, no. I said, okay, so then tell me how many volleyball players played volleyball 3 days this week and trained vertical 3 times. And she said, maybe half of them. I said, so if you train vertical 3 times a week and play 3 times a week, then you've probably outworked 60% of them. Okay. Now, there's still 40% of them that did the same thing you did,
Yeah.
right? That's still a lot. I said, so now how many of them trained vertical 3 times, played volleyball 3 times, and then lifted weights 3 times? She said, well, maybe only 10% of them. I said, so if you do that, now you outwork 90% of them. But then there's still that 10% that did the exact same thing you did. And who knows what kind of genes they came from,
Oh yeah.
right? Who knows if mom
Some
and
people
dad...
have to work harder.
Right. I'm like, here, and at the end of the day, take the result out of the equation. Learn to work hard and grind.
Yeah.
And learn to enjoy the process, okay? Because that's what's going to take you somewhere in life. What are the chances you're going to play volleyball in the Olympics or even make any money playing volleyball, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're not going to do it, okay? Yeah. So what you're trying to do is establish a work ethic here.
Well, and that's what sports does for all of us.
Right.
Right. Like, and that's why we want. I would never tell someone don't put your kid in sports, because learning to work hard and grind, especially when it sucks.
Yeah.
That's what allows people to persevere. Yeah. And that's what, Tom Brady got quoted, I think, during his Hall of Fame speech. He was like, play it because it's hard.
Yeah.
Do it because it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's what kids
think about this generation.
Necessarily.
This generation is really a bunch of sissies. So if you, I swear to God, they're a bunch of sissies. I mean, so you teach your kids to have just a little bit of dog, they don't even need a lot of dog. If they just got a little dog, they will out-compete and outwork
Majority.
the way more than the majority.
Yeah.
They will out-compete and outwork, a majority of the kids in that generation.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit.
I believe that.
So let's talk about this as we close. Where do you see Optimum and Flash? We know here, let's talk about this. Flash is definitely opening up a new facility. It's going to be off a highway, and it's going to be much bigger, right? Okay.
I think we're going to, and it's definitely going to be Flash, Optimum.
Right.
The goals that Jared and I have for our club is not to be this mega club. We foresee us having, 15 to 18 teams. I think would be ideal. 15 to 18 teams. Flash, continuing to train athletes, continuing to develop athletes as a whole. And then, really my goal would be train and mentor coaches.
Okay, I got you.
We need more coaches who are not just out here berating. We need more coaches who know how to connect with kids, who know how to develop kids and grow kids. And so hopefully I get to a point where I can kind of step back from being in the gym coaching kids every day, and I can help train and mentor coaches to take that on, right?
That's a big thing.
So that's kind of, obviously we have a ton of financial goals, things we got to pay the land off so we can start this building, we can get things going.
Do things right, it'll come.
Yeah.
Just consistently do things right, and it will. I remember, and I may have said this on one of the podcasts, but Dr. Patala, I was good friends with his sons, Lenny and Tommy, and we were at a wedding one time, and I'll never forget, he sat there, he said, let me tell you something. He said, if you're honest and you work hard, it is really tough not to be successful. Yeah. And I've always that's always been in my head, and there was times, where my business wasn't booming, and I'd have someone come in that I didn't think I could help. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to treat you. And I needed the patient, and I'm like, and it's hard to do that, and you're looking for any reason in the world to treat them. But I'm like, I don't think I'm in your best interest.
Yeah. Has to be. I think in what I say about club and volleyball and sports and athletes, right? I have no hard feelings when a kid leaves the club. Sometimes I want the kid to stay and they leave, right? But no hard feelings, always going to root for them, because it has to be a right fit for the player. It has to be a right fit for the coach. It has to be a right fit for the
family,
club
yeah,
and the family, everything,
yeah,
right?
Everything, yeah, for sure.
So,
and you guys may not be the right fit for everyone, and that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah, and you learn to not get you learn to not get upset about things like that.
Yeah.
You know, like my wife, there was someone that didn't like my podcast, and I'm like, babe, you can't get mad at that. You know, they're not all going to like it. How many people here, how many times did someone leave core physical therapy? We were not the right place for everyone.
Yeah.
We were not the right place for someone who just wanted to come in and lay on a plinth. That was not, you need to go someplace else.
Yeah. We want to be the right place for the right people.
Yeah.
We want to be the right coaches, the right directors for the right kids.
Yeah.
Right. So, and families. So, yeah.
Well, I'm excited to watch it grow. I'm glad my kids are a part of it. I'm glad I'm training at Flash. I love being around Jared and Derek. I know that whatever they do, just because of the principles they operate on, it's gonna explode, and I'm excited to watch it grow. And I think you guys are gonna do great. And I'm glad my kids are getting coached by you.
Thanks. I'm, super grateful. Super grateful that I met, Gianna and Michelle a couple years ago. So it's been a fun ride. It's absolutely been amazing last couple years with Optimum. So excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. I told Michelle, I said, this is where we needed to be. And I honestly made the decision simply for geography. I'm like, hold on. This place is 8 minutes from our house.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, and I was so glad. I don't know how Michelle found you. But she's like, I think I really like this Tessa. I'm like, please like Tessa. Please like Tessa. She's 8 minutes from me. Please like Tessa.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for being on. I really appreciate
thank
it.
you.